Somebody sent me this video. I wanted to check it out. This is exactly how Charlie Kirk got schooled by a Cambridge student. This is 46 minutes long. This is by Rationality Rules.
Beautifully say that it was the teachings of Christ for one man and one woman, because the church tradition has been unbroken for 2,000 years, and they derived it from scripture of that original language.
Linguistically, there is undeniably an error, regardless of what you say.
Do you know better than the church fathers? Maybe you can educate me. Can you point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage? Not cohabitation, but marriage.
Ancient Mesopotamia.
As marriage. As recognized.
As marriage that exists.
Recognized by this. How did that work out for them?
It worked out perfectly fine. It was an accepted norm of society.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
How are you gonna do that? Like, you're trying to dialogue tree this kid, and he just completely owns you because you didn't do your full research, and then you just like, well, it's so bad anyway. I don't know. Very interesting. Let's see.
In one breathtaking moment of honesty, Charlie Kirk inadvertently revealed that his entire philosophical foundation rests on quicksand. When confronted with historical evidence that systematically undermined his claims about universal moral truths, his sophisticated theological view collapsed into little more than, well, I just think that it's yucky.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
On this day, and maybe every day, Charlie Kirk.
That's interesting. I didn't. So it was actually just there's moral truths, and being against gay marriage is like a moral truth that being gay is wrong and it's bad. And he just like, you would think, because that's a really big general claim to make. Like, it's more than just, because you could say being gay is wrong, and it's like, okay, I guess, because you're like, I'm a Christian and being gay is wrong. It's like, okay, that's fine, I guess. But then if you're like, it's like, I have this like pragmatic understanding of morality and can explain why it's wrong, and I can explain it because of how it's manifested within the world, and you just immediately get on. It's crazy.
Didn't care about your facts.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
And this moment of accidental transparency unveils everything about how modern conservative apologetics actually operates. But I am getting ahead of myself.
You guys are easy.
Why, hello, my fellow apes. I hope you are well. Today, we're dissecting a debate that beautifully illustrates the intellectual house of cards that is modern Christian apologetics. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA and professional purveyor of rapid-fire conservative talking points, found himself at Cambridge University facing Rudy.
It's so annoying. He does it all the time. He does it's called gish galloping, where he just like lists off like 5 or 6 different points all at once, and it's like you can't possibly engage with it, because even if you pick on one, you leave out everything else, and it's just like impossible for you to like have like it literally is just like the death of discourse right then and there when people start gish galloping. I mean, it's one thing to like bring out like multiple examples at once to like certify a point, but that's like his main thing. He just like rambles on and overwhelms you with like too much information at once that you can't possibly account for like in a singular response, because even once you start responding to each one sequentially, he'll just like interrupt you immediately and start arguing with you about something else. So yeah.
Ellis Jones, a student studying archaeology and biological anthropology. And what makes this exchange so instructive isn't merely that Kirk loses the debate, though he definitely does. Even his own audience agrees with this. No, it's how he loses. So what we're going to do is journey through this exchange chronologically, watching Kirk deploy an increasingly desperate array of logical fallacies as his position crumbles under scrutiny. And by the end, we'll understand exactly why his final retreat of "I still think it's wrong" wasn't just a moment of honesty. It was the only move he had left. Here's Rudy's opening question.
Hello, thank you for coming to today's talk. So my question, as someone studying archaeology and biological anthropology, I've learned that moral codes and social norms have always been fluid, shaped by time, culture, power. So many ancient and recent societies embraced same-sex relationships and even the idea of third genders well before Western conservatism even existed. So when you claim that modern conservative values represent some kind of universal, objective moral truth, like you said on your chair over there, aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
Now this is genuinely a brilliant start, and here's why. Rudy isn't just asking a question here. He's presenting a fundamental challenge to Charlie's entire worldview. He's not making some simple argument about right or wrong. No, he's doing something far more devastating. He's making a historical and anthropological observation about the relativity of moral systems across cultures and across time periods.
Moral codes and social norms have always been fluid, shaped by time, culture, power.
And notice what he's doing strategically. Though it is possible that it's not deliberate, of course. He establishes his credentials right up front. He's actually studied this stuff.
As someone studying archaeology and biological anthropology,
And then he frames the entire question using Charlie's own language about universal objective moral truth.
so when you claim that modern conservative values represent some kind of universal objective moral truth, like you said on your chair over there,
He's essentially saying, you claim your values are universal, but I've studied human history, and, well, they're not.
aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
Crucially, this isn't some gotcha question thrown out for cheap points. It's a genuine philosophical challenge that deserves a genuine philosophical response. Theologians know this. They recognize it as a very serious problem. For the vast majority of Christendom, slavery was perfectly kosher. But now, it's not. So, who got these universal objective moral values wrong? Aquinas or Kirk? So let's see how Charlie handles this inquiry.
Aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
No, but can you point to me of a... And maybe you can educate me. Can you point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage? Not cohabitation, but marriage.
This is weird that he would have like clearly have the credentials and like the fact that Charlie would ask a question like this off the bat, like he's probably going to have an answer for it, unless he's just that confident that there's no answer at all. Like he's confident that he understands the subject better than this guy does. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I guess we'll see.
Marriage.
Charlie's response here is problematic. You see, instead of engaging with Rudy's broad historical and anthropological point about moral relativism across cultures, Charlie immediately pivots to a very specific demand. Show me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage.
Point to me a great...
Oh, okay. So then if it's like, okay, well, yeah, because that is true. It's rather than just pointing to a place that did it, say, okay, well, show me where it actually worked, like where it was a good thing, it wasn't like a bad thing, like because if you can point to me a place where it happened, but actually that place was like doo-doo garbage, like you couldn't actually get, like it sucked to live there and it was just like a place to live, like then obviously like being gay or having gay marriage or like there's like a fundamental problem with the thought process of that power, right, that would incline them to support gay marriage, and you could draw a line to that from that to their downfall. So that is a very, I mean, I guess that would be a good response question for sure to give Charlie credit.
Power that endorsed same-sex marriage.
Now, this move does several things at once. First, it significantly narrows the scope of the discussion. Rudy mentioned same-sex marriages and third genders across various cultures throughout history.
Many ancient and recent societies embrace same-sex relationships and even the idea of third genders.
But Charlie immediately reduces this
yeah.
to one specific institution, marriage, and one specific criterion, endorsement by great powers.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage. Not cohabitation, but marriage.
This is a classic...
Well, see, like, that's the thing is, obviously he's a scumbag, but that is he's very good. He's very good at what he does. Obviously, like he knows exactly how to try to wiggle around it. If he can get you at all in any sense on if he can catch you in any way, he'll try to do it. So he tries to like get you on a hang up there, like ask a very specific question. Like that's a pretty good. It's impressive that he can think of a question like that in the moment. I mean, obviously, I don't like the question. I definitely don't agree with Charlie on this, but. Yeah, give him credit where it's due, at least.
Of moving the goalposts, a fallacy where someone changes the criteria for evidence or proof whenever their original claim has been met. For example, imagine someone claims no scientist supports this theory, and then, when you name one, they respond with, well, no Nobel Prize winning scientist supports it. Basically, the standard for evidence keeps shifting to avoid conceding the point, and that is what's happened here, and will continue to happen with Charlie. Second, Charlie's move shifts the burden of proof. He claims that conservative values represent universal, objective moral truth, but when challenged on this universality, he doesn't defend his claim. Instead, he demands that Rudy provide specific counterexamples that meet Charlie's newly introduced narrow criteria.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage.
It's a shaky start, but you know what? Let's work with Charlie's new goalposts. Because there's a curious assumption at the back of the net. The moral validity somehow depends on political power. That is a rather odd standard.
Yeah.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage.
Well, like I said, it probably has something to do with like, oh, a great power. So some kind of thing that didn't fail, right? Like it didn't fail because if it failed, it's like, well, it failed. And I wonder why, because they like the gay marriage. Like clearly they didn't have their, screws on tight,
Why should it matter whether a great power endorsed something? Are we to believe that military might determines moral truth? I mean, Jesus didn't command legions.
Wait, is that what he means, do you think? Like a power, like an actual military? Like, I guess then it would be even more specific. Rather than like basic leadership, it would be like, was this power, was this like a strong empire? Was it a strong kingdom? Was it a strong country or city or like anything like in the sense of like military power? I didn't even think about it like that. I figured a power in the sense that it was like important or like important within the region it occupied or even the world. But yeah, maybe he does mean military there.
By Charlie's logic, we should be worshipping Caesar. Or, if you want a contemporary example, Islam, since Islam is growing in power. Talking of which, here's a story. Islam gains ground globally as Christian share shrinks. When I saw this headline, I knew that it would be one of those stories where perspective is everything. And I was right. This single Pew Research report has been covered by 50 different outlets. But here's where it gets interesting. 53% of the coverage comes from right-leaning sources, and only 39% of all outlets covering it have high factual ratings. That's a red flag that tells me that I need to dig deeper to understand what's really happening. This is exactly why ground news has become an indispensable part of my daily routine. It cuts through the spin and shows me how different outlets frame the exact same.
Since we're stealing this guy's content, I'll let his ad play through because he
You
deserves it.
can follow along at ground.news/rationality. Newsweek, a centrist outlet, keeps it straightforward. Islam is world's fastest growing religion, simply noting that the proportion of the world's population that is Christian slipped from 2010 to 2020. Just the facts. But the National Post, leaning right, headlines it as Islam growing, Christianity slipping as share of world's population. Yet they blur the lead, focusing instead on how nearly a quarter of the world's population did not identify with religion in 2020. Same data, completely different emphasis. Ground News' biased comparison reveals how left-leaning outlets frame Islam's growth positively as fast growing, while highlighting Christianity shrinking. Meanwhile, right-leaning outlets employ cautionary tones, stressing Christianity slipping and often implying cultural threat. In today's polarized media landscape, tools like Ground News are essential, showing you how facts get filtered through different ideological lenses. And they're offering you, my subscribers, 40% off their Vantage plan at ground.news/rationality. Your subscription supports this channel while giving you access to balanced news coverage. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting transparent journalism. Getting back to Charlie, here's the thing about moving the goalposts. Sometimes your opponent can still score.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage, not cohabitation, but marriage.
Ancient Mesopotamia.
As marriage, as recognized.
As marriage that exists.
Recognized by the state.
100%.
Oh dear, Charlie received the direct answer.
I wonder if he'd even be able to fact check him. Like, do you think he even knows about it, or like, yeah? But no, I mean, well, he probably does not know at all, and he wouldn't really have an argument against that.
One. He moved the goalpost.
I wonder if you could just like lie. I wonder if you could just make something up. Like, I wonder if you could just make up some random thing and just be like, yep, and then just like if he would concede there. I don't know.
Yet the ball is going in anyway. So, what does he do?
How did that work out for them?
Yep, he simply moves them.
See,
again.
see. I called this. This is exactly what he was gonna do.
To be clear, his original big beautiful goalposts were that conservative values represent universal, objective moral truth. When challenged, those goalposts became show me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage.
When Rudy cleared that bar with ancient Mesopotamia, suddenly the goalpost shifted to was it recognized by the state?
Recognized by the state. 100%.
And now, even when Rudy confirms that it was state recognized, Charlie picks up those goalposts one more time and carries them to, well, how did it work out for them?
How did that work out for them?
With the tiniest amount of pressure, we've gone from defending universal moral truth to essentially asking, but did their civilization last forever? Boy, oh boy, it's exhausting.
Yeah, which is just also just really stupid because, I mean, obviously, like most civilizations do not last forever. Like it's just like that. You could probably point to a lot of different things. You could probably point to a civilization that had held very closely to Charlie's worldview that failed as well, but that wouldn't be an argument against his worldview, obviously. So yeah.
Track of where the goalposts are at this point. But again, let's address the new goalpost positioning, shall we? To get technical, we're witnessing post hoc ergo propter hoc. After this, therefore because of this, Charlie implies a causal link between accepting same-sex marriage and the eventual decline of Mesopotamian
Dude, I'm so goated, dude. I'm a genius, bro. Oh my god.
civilization, with absolutely zero evidence for this connection.
How did that work out for them?
It's like saying Rome legitimized Christianity, and then the empire fell. So,
Yeah,
Christianity
wait, yeah,
destroyed.
yes, exactly. You could totally point to something that Charlie believes in and use that as a reason why it's bad, because you could point to any empire at all that eventually did not work out. But yeah,
Right.
you wouldn't agree with that.
Do you think that Charlie would find that convincing? That the greatest power on earth let Jesus into its heart, and because of this, it crumbled? No, of course he wouldn't accept this. Likewise, the fact that Mesopotamian civilizations eventually declined, like literally every civilization in human history, has nothing to do with their marriage customs. But Charlie's reasoning here also represents an appeal to consequences, arguing that something must be false based on its alleged negative outcomes. You see, Kirk suggests that because Mesopotamia eventually fell, their acceptance of same-sex marriage must have been wrong.
How did that work out for them?
But he wouldn't accept this elsewhere, would he? He wouldn't say that monogamous marriage is wrong because the Roman Empire fell despite
True.
practicing.
Actually,
He wouldn't
that's
claim
even a better example now that I think about it.
that traditional gender roles are invalid because Victorian Britain, the very embodiment of this traditional value, lost its empire. And in any case, this completely sidesteps the question of whether such marriages actually existed. Anyhow, when Rudy scored, despite Charlie moving the goal for the billionth time, his final form emerged.
How did that work out for them?
It worked out perfectly fine. It was an accepted norm of society.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
Okay.
And there's the moment of accidental honesty. After his sophisticated theological and historical arguments have been systematically dismantled, Charlie Kirk falls back on his feelings.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
This exemplifies the argument from incredulity, rejecting
Yeah,
evidence.
that's probably like one of the dumbest. I don't know, like the conservative PR around like 2017, like they probably thought is such a good idea when they first came up with it, but it is just like so stupid when you really think about it. Like the idea that like facts don't care about your feelings, the idea that these people were always going to be operating from a pragmatic, statistical, factual standpoint at all times is just so ridiculous. Like the fact that they never considered, wait, what if one day we become the massive pussies that cry over everything, which has now happened. Like they never considered that. And so now if they ever have feelings about anything, they're almost like they're hypocrites. If they feel a certain way, which it's totally valid, by the way, to feel a certain way about something without like a deep, pragmatic, thought out reason, now they're like actually not allowed to even have that at all. Like they can't just have personal opinions on this.
Simply because one personally finds it hard to believe or accept. You see, I still think it's wrong isn't an argument, it's a confession that his position isn't based on evidence.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you were to argue that like trans people are bad because they groom kids in schools, like they go into elementary schools and they groom kids, and the drag queens, they groom the kids, and it's like, okay, you do realize that like your child is more likely to get groomed by like a straight teacher in school than they are by a trans teacher or like a drag queen, like a cisgender teacher is far more likely to do that to them. And they'd be like, well, even if I grant that, I still think it's wrong to be trans. And it's like, well, okay, so the reason you just gave is not actually the reason why. It's a justification more than anything. Like the point that Charlie makes about, oh, it's a moral truth and it's failed everywhere. is not an actual like pragmatic decision and conclusion he came to thanks to research. It's just a justification for why he feels the way he does, which means he's just like a massive pussy, honestly. Like he can't just say, "Yeah, I think this way because it's how I feel." Like he can't just say that, because once again, they've made it so the liberals and the leftists have the monopoly on feelings. They don't control feelings. They just have the facts. We have the feelings. So yeah, they kind of fuck themselves in that way.
History, or even consistent biblical interpretation. It's based on whatever Charlie Kirk personally finds icky.
Yeah,
I still think it's wrong.
But Charlie can't just leave it there, can he? He knows
fire.
that the answer, "I just think it's yucky," isn't going to convince anyone that he's in possession of universal moral authority. So, when Rudy moves on to ask about the biblical basis of these supposedly objective moral truths, Charlie deploys another classic deflection.
Simply moving on, so you said it was based on scripture and you believe that there are moral, objective, universal truths.
Yes, there are.
So
Murder is wrong today and murder was wrong 2,000 years ago.
Ah, here it is, the classic fallback for anyone defending universal moral values. Murder is wrong. It's devastatingly effective with lay audiences because it seems so obviously true. Who could possibly disagree? It's intuitively compelling, it's morally satisfying, and it appears to prove the existence of timeless moral truths. But as anyone who's studied philosophy or law knows, this is actually a rhetorical toy.
Murder is wrong today and murder was wrong 2,000 years ago.
Here's why. Murder is by definition the unlawful or wrongful killing of a human being. So, when Charlie says murder is wrong, he's essentially saying wrongful killing is wrongful, which is a tautology, a statement that's true by definition. It's like declaring that illegal activities are against the law and expecting applause for your profound moral insight. You haven't actually said anything substantive about morality. You've just restated a definition. The real moral questions are, which killings count as murder? Who decides? By what metric? And has that been consistent across time and cultures? This is where Charlie's universal truth completely falls apart. Because here's the thing, and this is where it gets interesting for those of you who are familiar with the good book. The Bible is absolutely packed with God commanding killings that would definitely classify as murder.
Yeah, true. There's that one of those Psalms where David prays to God. I don't remember who. I don't remember the Bible at all. But there's that one Psalm where David acts insane, and for some reason the soldiers of the empire go and kill like all the priests, and he goes and prays to God. He says, "Can I kill these as revenge?" And God's like, "Yeah, go for it." He's like, "Yeah, you can kill these guys. No worries, dude. Yeah, they killed a bunch of priests. You could absolutely go kill those guys."
The conquest of Canaan alone involved the systematic slaughter of entire populations, including children. But because
also like obviously like Sodom and Gomorrah, that's probably a better example, or like the floods, like Noah's Ark, and like just like straight up just murdering people all the time. But you could argue those are metaphorical, I guess. I don't know. That's like always the argument. Like if you can't justify something in the Bible, it's metaphorical, and if it's like real, then it's real. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Commanded it. It wasn't murder by the biblical definition. It was righteous, lawful killing of babies. So Charlie's supposed universal moral laws dissolves into a tautology at worst and a mere data point at best the moment you examine it closely. What counts as murder depends entirely on who's making the rules and what they consider to be justified. And notice what he's doing strategically. He's using a red herring, introducing irrelevant information to distract from the argument at hand. The question was specifically about the biblical basis for views on homosexuality and whether scripture provides universal moral truths.
Many ancient and recent societies embrace same-sex relationships and even the idea of third genders.
Instead of defending his position on same-sex relationships, Charlie pivots to murder, something everyone, by definition, agrees is wrong.
Murder is wrong today and murder was wrong 2,000
I
years
don't.
ago.
I think it's great. I think murdering people is awesome. I think that there's a little bit of gray area on that where maybe you could have a more nuanced opinion on the ethics of murder, but
and this creates the impression that he's on solid moral ground without actually addressing the challenge to his views on sexuality. But as Rudy astutely points out,
that's not same-sex, but fair. I see your point.
In other words, nice try changing the subject, but murdering someone, ending their life, isn't the same as consensual sex between adults, making love. But Charlie can't help himself. He doubles down on his claim.
There are moral truths that are transcendent of time, place, and matter.
Okay, but
Wait, so did he conceded his point and he just goes right back to it? That's crazy, dude.
so just to clarify, you believe that
so
this
slimy.
is in the Bible. This is laid out in the Bible that man shall not sleep with man, and so therefore
Well, it's also repeated throughout the New Testament as well. In the book of Matthew, Jesus reaffirms the biblical standard for marriage.
Okay, so
And here we encounter the fundamental lie, or to be fair, ignorance underpinning Charlie's entire argument. Because the biblical standard for marriage really doesn't bear the resemblance that he claims. So, let's talk about what marriage actually looked like in biblical times, shall we? Biblical marriage was fundamentally...
Yeah, from what I recall, a lot of the way that a lot of Christians recall like marriage in the Bible or Jesus's opinion on marriage is never fully like accurate or all encompassing. I don't know where this it's very strange.
centered on property transfer. I'm sorry, ladies, but that's how it was. Women were literally bought and sold. Genesis 34:12 states,
we need to go
"Make the
back to
bride
that.
price and gift as great."
I'm a incel. I need to buy a girlfriend at this point, dude. I'm 27 years old. My hairline is going to be back to here at any moment now. I need to find a wife. I need to get her pregnant. I need to have children so they can take care of me when I'm old as shit and I'm fat and I'm dying. Okay? I'm an incel. I need to buy a wife. Okay? We got to figure something out. All right? Or else I'm fucked.
You like, and I will give whatever you ask. Only give me the young woman to be my wife. You could capture...
I've heard but cannot confirm that parts of the New Testament were written by the Romans to control the Jewish population. That's awesome. Hey, shout out to AP Killer for the follow on Kick, dude. Thank you so much. We need all the help we can get. Wow. Thanks, man. You're the best. Oh, no! Where was I? Oh, here we go.
Like in biblical times, shall we? Biblical marriage was fundamentally centered on property transfer. I'm sorry, ladies, but that's how it was. Women were literally bought and sold. Genesis 34:12 states, "Make the bride price and gift as great as you like, and I will give whatever you ask. Only give me the young woman to be my wife." You could capture wives in war. Deuteronomy 21:10-14 explicitly outlines the process. When you see a beautiful woman whom you desire among your captives, you can force her to shave her head, pare her nails, and after a month, and we all know why it's a month, you can go into her and be her husband. Oh, here's one. You can even marry the victim you had forced yourself on, for a fee, of course. Remember, women were property. If you damaged the goods, you buy it. Deuteronomy 22.
Oh, I see where the argument is going to come from here is basically like, well, if you really dive into the finer details of marriage as it's represented in the Bible, if the Bible is kind of like the epicenter of this, there's obviously like dated practices that like, you know, not to discredit the Bible or say it's bad or that it's like anything, but like obviously it was written not by God, it was written by man. And, you know, there are traditions that were likely to be upheld during the time of its creation. And as a result, there's probably some dated things that Charlie would most likely not really be on board with or not find to be the definition of morality the way that he would reference the book as he currently does. So, yeah, that's actually a good point.
28 and 29 declares, "If a man meets a virgin who is not engaged and seizes her and lies with her, the man who lay with her shall give 50 shekels of silver to the young
shekels?
woman."
Oh, jeez. Uh-oh. It's God's chosen currency, dude. 50 whole shekels. That's a lot. That's too much, dude. You gotta save your money.
"And she shall become his wife." Yeah, such a wholesome, family-friendly book, isn't it? Anyway, let's talk about polygamy. Something Charlie very much doesn't like. He probably finds it yucky too.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
It's absolutely
It is yucky.
everywhere.
Polygamy is disgusting. If you're polyamorous or you're polygamous, you're disgusting, dude. I spit in your face. You're disgusting. Just have one girlfriend who you love. Don't let your girlfriend get by other people. Don't people other than your girlfriend. Find a beautiful, kind woman to share your life with, okay? And bask in the glory of the Lord, okay? Do not be polyamorous. Do not be polygamous. If you are polyamorous or polygamous, I have a problem with you, all right? And it's going to get bloody. It's going to get ugly. You're going to be in a hospital bed, all right? I'm serious.
Where Lamech had 2 wives, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Jacob, the guy Israel is literally named after, had 4 women bearing his children.
Wow.
Likewise, David, described as a man after God's own heart, had multiple wives. In 2 Samuel 12:8, God literally tells David, "I give you your master's wives, and if that had been too little, I would have added as much more." You hear that? God would have given him more wives if he wanted them. So when Charlie claims that Jesus reaffirmed the biblical standard for marriage,
In the book of Matthew, Jesus reaffirms the biblical standard for marriage.
he's engaging in massive cherry picking, selecting only the evidence that supports his position while ignoring the mountains of contradictory material. And this is cafeteria Christianity at its finest. Take what you like, ignore what
Cafeteria
you don't.
Christianity.
Funny, ain't it? Charlie is guilty of the very thing Rudy emphasized in his original comment.
Okay, so I'm going to make 2 very, very quick points. So the first, so if we look at the Old Testament in isolation, just to start off with, as an example. So let's look at Exodus 35:2, which suggests that...
Oh, he knows the fucking Bible and everything. Dude, this guy's a genius, brother. Holy.
On the Sabbath, you should be put to death. If you look at Leviticus 11:7, it suggests that if you have pork, you should be put to death. Let me finish, I'll be done. If you plant 2 crops side by side, you should be stoned by your entire village.
See, so this is like, so I was talking about how Charlie gish gallops. Now, maybe call me a little biased, but I wouldn't call this gish galloping. I would say, well, here's a few examples of like why I think you're wrong, as opposed to like Joe Biden is bad because he did this thing and then he did this thing and then he did this thing and then he did this thing, but then he's just like, all he's doing is saying like, well, if that's the case, if like you believe that this is the epicenter of morality, like there's a lot of things in here that like it's like the things that he's combining are a part of a general central question, right? As opposed to the gish galloping that Charlie Kirk does, which will be like Joe Biden is bad, which isn't a question, it's a statement, and then gish galloping based on that statement, and you're forced to respond to like the amalgamation of all those questions at once, as opposed to this, which is like I'm making a statement, I'm asking you a question, right? And I'm backing it up with these facts, and you can answer the question by reconciling with these facts that I'm bringing up.
If you wear a suit, which you are wearing now, that contains 2 different fibers intertwined into the same jacket, you should be burned to the stake by your own mother.
Uh-oh, you're a heretic. Uh-oh, Charlie, you're a heretic. You got the mixed fabrics, brother. You're a dude. You got mixed fabrics in your jacket.
That rationale, in Leviticus 18:22, when it states that man shall not sleep with man, why aren't we burning ourselves at the stake as well? Why aren't we stoning ourselves?
Oh, I love British people like this. I hate British people, but British people like this, like the autistic, like not posh, but like very like well-spoken and intelligent, smug, autistic British people. I love them, dude. Charlie Kirk genuinely makes me feel like I can accomplish anything. That's what you should know. Look, take it from me, YouTuber. I've not the most successful guy in the world, but I've had some success. Okay. It is like I've met everyone's a idiot. Okay. Everyone in the media sphere, YouTubers and everyone, everyone's stupid. Nobody knows anything. Everyone's retarded. Okay. It's not that hard to get here. I'm an idiot. And the fact that I got to the point where I'm at now is pretty impressive. Okay. It's really not that hard. You just got to try really hard. You got to know the right people and you just got to keep going. Eventually it'll all work out. You can accomplish anything. Trust me. That's a good way to look at it. The fact that Charlie Kirk is where he's at is a very good sign for basically anybody watching the stream that there is hope for you. I promise.
And this is the checkmate move, and the audience knows it. Rudy has just exposed the fundamental inconsistency of Charlie's position using Charlie's own methodology. We can put it this way. If we're supposed to follow biblical law as the source of objective moral truth, then we need to follow all of it, not just the bits that happen to align with our contemporary prejudices. Charlie stands there in his mixed fiber suit, probably having eaten bacon.
Look at that posture, boy. Oh my god, look at that, dude. Look at that hunchback. Oh god, he needs to start mewing. Look at that big fat pocket of fat, that big fat pussy under his fat, right under his chin right there. Ugh, disgusting. Look at that Norwood 5 hairline, dude. He just got absolutely decimated by this like British twink. That's so sad, dude.
For breakfast, definitely not observing
I feel bad for
laws
him.
that require the death penalty for violations, and yet he wants to enforce the biblical prohibitions on homosexuality. This exemplifies the core of cafeteria Christianity. Charlie loads up his plate with the dishes he likes, anti-gay verses, love thy neighbor, as long as they're not gay, while ignoring the ones he finds yucky, anti-mixed fabric verses, slavery endorsing verses, It's intellectually incoherent, but emotionally satisfying because it allows him to use religious authority to justify his prejudices. Now, before moving on, I should make a pedantic note, if only because this is the only thing that Charlie's core audience will latch onto. Rudy gets a few minor details wrong. Some of these laws don't prescribe the specific punishments that he mentions, but his fundamental point is rock solid. If you're going to cite biblical law as your moral authority, you need to explain why you follow some laws but not others. So, how does Charlie respond to this devastating challenge?
Do you care to address my main contention that Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew? And can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial, the moral, and the ritual law? And then
okay, wait. Oh my God, he's gonna give him like a pop quiz on the entire Bible. Dude, if he actually was able to answer all these questions, that would be pretty impressive. But this is so disgusting that he's like pointing out that he's just saying, hey, you're appealing to this thing as like the epicenter of morality, but you're not following it. So I'm just trying to understand, like, how can you point to this as a center of morality when you don't seem to take a lot of these other things very seriously? And your response is to not even answer it. And then to, ironically, he's gish galloping. It was gish galloping like these dumbass questions where it's like, well, how well do you know the Bible? Like, what?
finally, also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the New and the Old Covenant, or are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to New Christianity?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Jesus
behold
Christ,
the Gish Gallop, overwhelming
Hey,
your
that's-
opponent with
see?
a rapid-fire barrage.
See, this is his favorite one, the gish gallop. It's his favorite tactic, dude. Have you seen South Park took the piss out of Charlie? I haven't seen that episode yet. No, because I don't have Paramount Plus, or do I? Actually, I might on Amazon. I might have to check it. I saw the first one though. It's so weird how the conservatives are like, they think that they're in on the joke. It's so weird because they're just like, I don't know what it is, but or no, I do know what it is. Okay, so basically all conservative media pundits and politicians, they all have direct ties in one way or another to Trump. Maybe there's a few middlemen in there, but ultimately they're all interlocked on signaling. And I know, like, for example, they always have the same talking points. They're always fear-mongering on the same shit. They're always like super aligned. I guarantee you that they were like, oh, the libs are trying to own us, dude. The libs are trying to own us, and they're trying to make us like crash out, so we just have to pretend like we love the South Park so we don't get owned. And so what they're doing is they're basically like reacting to jokes that are clearly all over them, and they're like, this is based and awesome. And it's just like, you look like a idiot. Like, because it seems like they don't even understand the jokes, because they were like showing the ICE going through heaven and like deporting all of the Mexicans from heaven, and they're like, yeah, dude. Like, it's like, do you know what's going on? Do you have any idea what's going on at all?
Of questions and demands, making it impossible to respond to all of them in the limited time available. This is a classic desperation move. Charlie is effectively on the ropes, and so instead of addressing Rudy's point about inconsistency, he 1. tries to redirect back to his Matthew claim, red herring.
Do you care to address my main contention that Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew?
2. demand that Rudy explain complex theological distinctions, burden of proof reversal.
Can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial, the moral, and the
Please.
ritual law?
3. asks about the difference between covenants, more burden shifting.
Also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the New and the Old Covenant.
And 4. accuses Rudy of cherry picking, projection.
Are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to New Christianity?
But here's the biblical irony. Charlie accuses Rudy of cherry picking while simultaneously claiming,
We do not live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral.
this represents special pleading, applying different
What?
standards to your own position than you do to others. And here's where it gets really interesting. This neat tripartite distinction between moral, ceremonial, and ritual law that Charlie presents is not actually in the Bible. Sure, there are biblical passages that hint at different types of commandments, Jesus prioritizing certain laws, the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15 exempting Gentiles from circumcision, Paul discussing dietary laws. But this specific 3-category system that Charlie uses, that's a later theological invention.
We do not live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral.
The Bible itself never says, here are the moral laws you must keep forever. Here are the ceremonial laws that you can ignore, and here are the ritual laws that no longer apply. You won't find a verse declaring Leviticus 18:22 is moral law condemning homosexuality, but Leviticus 19:19 about mixed fabrics is ceremonial. This framework was developed centuries later by theologians trying to solve the exact problem that Rudy has identified: how to keep some biblical laws while discarding others. Thomas
Hold on, share stream. Hassan memes, 2 seconds.
Aquinas developed it extensively. The Westminster Confession codified it for many Protestants. But make no mistake, it's theological interpretation, not biblical text. In my opinion, it's apologetic acrobatics designed to make inconsistent practices seem consistent. So, let's get this straight. Charlie uses post-biblical theological tradition to justify ignoring biblical law.
We do not live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral.
While simultaneously claiming that biblical law is the source of objective moral truth.
There are moral truths that are transcendent of time, place, and matter.
The circular reasoning is dizzying. But the most revealing part of Charlie's response is his attempt to dismiss the Old Testament entirely by invoking the New Covenant.
Also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the New and the Old Covenant, or are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to new Christianity?
And here's where he steps directly into a theological landmine, as Jesus himself had some pretty clear things to say about this. Matthew 5:17 and 18 states, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth passes away, not one..."
Please tell me the guy he's debating knows this. Please tell me.
Not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Let's repeat that. Not one letter, not one stroke of a letter. Jesus continues, "Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven." Now, Christians debate what these commandments refer to, but taken at face value, Jesus is warning against exactly what Charlie is doing.
I feel as if Charlie is only capable of debating like 3 things and he still loses. It's honestly pretty... Well, that's why he only debates college kids. Actually, it's funny. He is going to be debating Hassan Piker soon. And I find it funny because he won't even debate Dean Withers, bro. He like dodged a debate with Dean Withers. Like, he's such a pussy. Like, he's actually such a pussy, dude. He won't debate anyone who's actually qualified. Like, he went to this thing assuming that every single kid here was going to be retarded and was not expecting that this guy that came up was going to be like autistic savant, like actual super genius, 160 IQ Chad that just has like, it just knows exactly how to debate him. Yeah, like, and this is why he very specifically chooses his debates. He's willing to debate Hassan because Hassan is a idiot. This is why he won't debate Dean Withers. And to be fair, Dean Withers, I don't even think is that good of a debater, but he definitely, like, he won't even debate, regardless of how you feel about him. He's not going to debate Destiny ever, because Destiny, once again, regardless of how you feel about him, would destroy him like so quickly, because he can't handle like anyone who actually knows what they're talking about, even relatively knows what they're talking about, or is even a formidable opponent. He can only go after like these like stupid college kids. To my knowledge, it's pretty difficult to get into Oxford University, so it makes sense why he's losing. Yeah, I don't even know why he agreed to this. I guess he's probably deluded himself so hard into thinking that it's like, oh, you know, it's a woke school. The school is woke because college is woke, because you don't need college. Like, that's like a conservative talking point. It's like, you don't need college. Like, college is for idiots. Just get a trade job. So he probably has genuinely deluded himself into thinking that, like, college doesn't teach you anything. It's all just utter woke nonsense. Like, every single, like, they're all just idiots. Like, these kids are all dumb and they don't know anything. They're just like smoking weed and they got like ChatGPT doing their homework for them. Like, he genuinely has like deluded himself into thinking that he could even go to very prestigious schools and be like and just be like, yeah, no, I could debate here too.
Teaching people that large portions of God's law no longer apply. Poetic, isn't it? By his own savior's standards, Charlie may have just disqualified himself.
We do not live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral.
But we're not done. It gets worse. Charlie claims that Christians only follow the 10 Commandments.
There's only 10 of the moral that we as Christians believe we're bound to. Some believe 9, which of course is the Decalogue.
Well, Charlie, I say that we
The
check this out,
Decalogue.
right?
The Ten
Which of the Ten
Commandments.
Commandments prohibits homosexuality? No other
True.
gods
Wait, true. Did he? Wait, is that actually what he was saying there? Hold on.
follow the Ten Commandments.
There's only 10 of the moral that we as Christians believe we're bound to. Some believe 9, which of course is the Decalogue.
Well, Charlie, I say that
Wait, how did he fall into that? Holy. Imagine being an experienced debater and losing utterly to a college kid. Yeah, I know. It's why this was bound to happen eventually, but he is genuinely a moron.
we check this out, right?
All of his
Which-
debates, he does not win debate. Here's the thing: you can be completely wrong about shit and win a debate. Why can I not stomp on this goddamn thing? You can be, you can win a debate even if you're completely wrong just because you know the tactics. He has mastered the tactics. Am I crazy? What? Okay, yeah, but he doesn't win on any like actual moral standing or intellectual like thought process or like knowing the information, doing research. He's literally he just knows how to win the debate. I honestly wouldn't consider Charlie to be an experienced debater since all he does is debate college kids. Yeah, but well, here's the thing: is he is trained. Okay, so he has mastered. He has mastered. You know he's mastered it basically. Wait, do I have to crouch? Is that what I have to do? I have to crouch instead. He's been taught. He's been trained. Like this is all very intentional, right? It's very very intentional that he debates like this. So he is experienced in the sense that he's had a lot of experience practicing debating these stupid ass kids and knows exactly how to work them out, you know. Yeah. It's funny how he thought he'd have a gotcha moment, but he's getting utterly f***ed by the kid he's debating. Well, he's just not prepared for this kind of pushback. Like somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. The problem with college kids is that they not only are college kids just like not that smart and not that experienced. The problem is that college kids oftentimes think they're much smarter than they actually are. So it's just like a recipe for disaster. But of course, eventually it was bound to happen where a kid came in that actually knew what he was talking about and just decimates him.
Which of the Ten Commandments prohibits homosexuality? No other gods?
Yeah, and
Nope,
also
nope.
he just f***ed himself, by the way, which was the original point he's making. If you're gonna backtrack and say, well, it's really just based on the Ten Commandments, it's like, bro, like that is a slip of the tongue if I've ever heard one. Like he just completely f***ed himself.
No idols? Nope. Don't take God's name in vain? Nope. Remember the Sabbath? Nope. Honor parents? Nope. Don't murder? Nope. Don't commit adultery?
Another thing I want to say is it's actually very impressive that this kid is actually thoroughly debating Charlie because let me be careful. It's easier to debate somebody on facts, but talking about is being gay moral and you have a secular perspective versus a theistic perspective, that is a really hard debate to even like have at all, let alone to like crush someone in, especially if you're coming from the secular perspective, because it's a lot easier to kind of just throw shit at the wall when you have a more theistic perspective. Not to say the theistic perspective is inherently wrong, but just in the sense that you have a lot more ambiguity to lean on, because if you're coming from a secular perspective, you better have every single response. You better be able to talk about how your perspective reflects reality as opposed to their perspective, which reflects a moral code that is ambiguous and open for interpretation, right? So the fact that this kid is actually destroying him on a topic like this specifically is actually more impressive than it would be if it was just like, I don't know, the January 6th or like the elections being stolen or Russia collusion or anything like, because that's like a factual thing. Like it's much harder to obfuscate that for Charlie. So, but as opposed to here where it's pretty easy, all things considered.
Nope. Don't steal? Nope. Don't bear false witness? Nope. Don't covet? Nope.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
So, by Charlie's own stated standard, that Christians are only bound by the Ten Commandments, homosexuality is not prohibited.
There's only 10 of the moral that we as Christians believe we're bound to.
Quite the 4D chess move, huh? Charlie has accidentally argued himself out of his own position.
That's
but
fire,
he's not
dude.
done digging his grave. Moments later, when pressed on linguistic difficulties, this happens.
Yes, the Old Testament and New Testament harmonize one another, but Christ brought it to a different level, a different covenant, and a different moral teaching.
Where we translate things, but translations are linguistically ambiguous. As a former classicist, I know that language can't be translated directly. So, for example, if we look at the translation of certain words into man, So I've got two words here. So I've got malakoi, which means essentially soft, which isn't necessarily directly saying a gay man. And then we've got, oh God, how do I say that? Arsena koitai, which essentially means prostitutes. Now, if we look at things linguistically, we can
this
the Bible
kid.
and say that actually it wasn't saying man shall not sleep with man, it's saying man shall not sleep with prostitutes, which is an entirely different linguistic thing.
This linguistic argument cuts
Holy
to
shit.
the heart of biblical interpretation. These Greek words have genuinely been ambiguous for centuries. Early church fathers like Chrysostom interpreted malakoi as referring
Yeah, this kid talks like he's 30, 40. Now, he talk. This isn't even an age. He talks like he's way, 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 way smarter than anyone would be at any age. Like this 99th percentile. Yeah, unironically, this kid is probably like supercomputer, like hyper autism, like, but the best kind of autism. Like he has like a really, like, it's not an insult. He is very, like, if you get born with this kind of autism, you are like genetically superior to basically like everyone else. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like he probably actually has like a supercomputer brain. This kid is very smart. Like this kid is coming off to me 235 IQ British Chad, dude.
to masturbation. Luther translated arsenokoiti as child molesters, and it wasn't until 1946
Didier Bloods. It's a translation for Didier Bloods. Sorry.
that 1946
Stephen Hawking level,
that
yeah.
any English Bible
Yeah, AP, I got the wrong autism too. I got the type of autism that just makes me awkward as fuck and I get no hose.
first translated these terms as homosexual. Before that, effemina, abusers of themselves, various interpretations, but not specifically homosexuality. This is new. Now here's what's peculiar. Throughout Christian history, believers have embraced translation ambiguity when it helps them, just as Charlie does when it suits him. Problematic verses about slavery, verses about women's submission, divine genocide. Bro, the cultural context changes the meaning. The Hebrew is complex, dude. But suddenly, when the translation ambiguity doesn't favor Charlie's position on homosexuality, watch how he responds.
Now, if we look at things linguistically, we can pick apart the Bible and say that actually it wasn't saying man shall not sleep with man, it's saying man shall not sleep with prostitutes, which is an entirely different linguistic thing.
I'm not even getting into Leviticus, though.
But no,
my contention is completely New Testament focused.
This isn't Leviticus.
Oops, Rudy is discussing Greek words, which means he's talking about the New Testament.
Oh, he's like floundering now.
My contention is completely New Testament focused.
This isn't Leviticus.
Charlie has gotten his own Bible wrong. So, he needs to quickly make it look like Rudy's all in the wrong.
Well, actually, in Romans 1, it was actually women sleeping with women, so you got your verses wrong. In Romans 1, Paul is prophesying about the end of the world, and he's saying that in the end times, woman will like with woman like, and man will, I think it might say man will like, man like. You have to get the verses specifically.
At this point, Charlie is completely unraveling. He's trying to correct Rudy, you've got the verses wrong, while simultaneously admitting that he's not even sure what Romans 1 says. Think about that. He's debating biblical sexual ethics.
In Romans 1, it was actually women sleeping with women, so you got your verses wrong.
And yet he's reduced to guessing about the content of one of the most frequently cited passages in this debate.
In the end times, woman will like with woman like, and man will, I think it might say man will like, man like.
You see, this
He can't even speak properly. He's like actually like completely flustered because he's like, I'm so fucked right now. I don't know if he's ever been in a position like this in his like career, at least in a very long time.
Just about getting a verse wrong. It's about watching someone who has built their entire career on biblical authority fall apart upon the slightest pushback. The confident facade is cracking, and what's underneath is surprisingly uncertain. Sensing that his biblical arguments are crumbling, Charlie retreats to his ultimate fallback position.
Church tradition has had an unbroken chain affirming matrimony, holy matrimony being one man, one woman, one even as a non-Catholic.
See, he could have. Here's the problem: is that he could have just appealed to this from the very beginning, but it wasn't his strongest argument. So he has to like keep retreating back. Like, why wasn't this brought up initially? If you're going to talk about the churches affirm this particular thing always, if that's going to be your argument, you're going to discard the other. Then why did you even bring up the other shit in the first place? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, if this is what you're going to appeal to, it's just stupid.
Like, I'm glad that Pope Leo has reaffirmed in the last couple of days.
See you, AP
represents
Killer.
an
Thanks for hanging out,
argument
buddy.
from tradition, claiming something is true or good because it has been believed for a really long time. But let's examine the logic for a moment. The Mesopotamian civilization that Rudy mentioned, with its acceptance of same-sex marriage, flourished for over 3,000 years. That's longer than Christianity has even existed. Ancient Egyptian religion persisted for nearly 4,000 years. If longevity validates truth, should we be worshipping Ra? The Roman pantheon held sway for a millennium. Does Jupiter's 1,000-year reign make him real? Charlie's selective appeal to tradition reveals the game. Antiquity only counts as evidence when it supports his predetermined conclusions. And, of course, Charlie's claim of an unbroken chain is simply historically false.
Church tradition has had an unbroken chain.
Early Christian history was characterized by enormous diversity of belief and practice. The Marcionites, the Ebionites, the Gnostics all held radically different views within the first 2 centuries. Some denied Jesus' humanity, others his divinity. Others believed that Jewish law was still binding. Perhaps we can put it this way. If church tradition was so clear and unbroken, why did it take until 325 CE, 3 centuries after Jesus, for the Council of Nicaea to decide that Jesus was actually God? Why did it take until 393 CE for the Council of Hippo to establish which books even belong in the Bible? The fact is obvious to anyone willing to absorb it. These weren't confirmations of a static tradition. They were decisions made amid massive theological conflict, hugely influenced by politics. And just before we move on, we need to enjoy the irony here. Charlie appeals to an unbroken chain of church tradition when it supports his views on marriage, but he's remarkably selective over which parts of tradition he embraces.
Church tradition.
I used to think I was a good debater, but then I graduated high school and found more than 2 to 3 people that could actually debate me. I went to a Catholic school, so I used to like, whenever I was I was like a super, like, I've grown out of this, but I used to be a epic lay atheist. I used to argue with everyone in my class all the time about all the time. Dude, we watched God's Not Dead, and I like was like soying out. I was like so stoked because I was like, oh yeah, dude, I saw this movie. I watched like The Amazing Atheist and Cult of Dusty make fun of this movie, and I've seen it, and I think it's bad and ass. And I just like, I was like destroying it, like picking it apart. Like I was going crazy, dude. I must have been so annoying in that class, dude. I was literally like disrupting everything because like whenever we were talking about it, I would like bring up all the fallacies and everything that was wrong with it, and like oh my god, I must have been so annoying. But yeah, I used to always like, I love debating people. I don't know if I'm that good at it. I probably, if I'm knowledgeable about something, I'll probably be pretty decent. I'll be able to hold up my argument, I think.
Has had an unbroken chain affirming matrimony, holy matrimony being one man, one woman.
The same unbroken tradition also insisted on the divine right of kings for over a millennium. Does Charlie support absolute monarchy? Maybe he does.
Where is democracy in the US Constitution? Democracy is not an American value.
Likewise, the church fathers he cites.
When the f did he say that? Democracy not a wait. I need to see the full clip of this. That's crazy.
Where is democracy in the US Constitution? Democracy is not an American value.
That's crazy. This fascist.
Likewise, the church fathers he cites approvingly on marriage also wrote vicious anti-Semitic treatises. Chrysostom called synagogues the dwelling of demons, and Augustine laid the theological groundwork for centuries of Jewish persecution. Indeed, that same tradition burned heretics, launched crusades, and sold indulgences. So this is, again, cafeteria Christianity, taking what he wants from tradition while ignoring what he doesn't.
Woman will like with woman like, and man will, I think it might say man will like men like.
But Charlie isn't done with his appeals to tradition. When pressed on translation issues, he makes this remarkable claim.
But what about specifically in Matthew or in the book of Romans? And but in order for you to be correct, you mean the church fathers translated it wrong when they were within like 50 years of this?
This is another desperate deflection combined with a massive historical error. First, the church fathers weren't within 50 years of biblical events. The early apostolic fathers, Clement of Rome, Ignatius, Polycarp, wrote between 9.
So if you met the ultimate Stalinist, Marxist, Leninist Spurg lord, like 99th percentile autism, cream of the crop, has read pretty much every major communist book and quote, could you debate him from the perspective of a capitalist? No, probably not, because I don't know if I know that much about socialism. I would probably need to learn a lot more, which I'm in the process of researching that. Dude, by the way, I'm getting my ADHD meds soon, again, after not having them for a while, so I'm going to go crazy and research that a little more. But I have some books, or I bought a book about socialism actually, because I have like my understanding. I would say I'm not super confident and understanding a lot about the USSR and like about socialism and about all this stuff, but I'm getting into it. Also, like, I can like talk about more about the implementation throughout history than I could talk about the economic structure itself, if that makes any sense. Like, I could talk about the way it was implemented throughout history better than I could talk about the actual economic structure and the philosophy behind it. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, that's the guy you were referencing the other day. He hates it. Oh, geez. Well, maybe I can debate him one day when I give me 2 weeks on my ADHD meds, and maybe I can debate him.
95 and 150 CE. That's 65 to 120 years after Jesus' death, and decades after the New Testament books were written. Second, the Church Fathers weren't translating. They were interpreting Greek texts that were themselves already translations of Jesus' Aramaic sayings. So, they were reading translations, not making them. Third, by the time we get to the Church Fathers, we're dealing with interpretations of translations of oral traditions, filtered through decades of theological development. It was a game of telephone spanning a century. But here's the real issue. Charlie assumes that being closer in time automatically makes you right. By that logic, the people who were closest to Jesus, his own Jewish disciples, kept following Jewish law after his death. So, should we all be keeping kosher? Look, the Church Fathers were brilliant theologians, but they were no more immune to interpretive errors than anyone else. They disagreed with each other constantly, which is why there was a dire need for all those councils hundreds of years later to settle disputes.
You know better than the Church Fathers?
And this classic appeal to authority fallacy morphs into an ad hominem attack.
Wait, sorry, aren't also like, why are all of the disciples, like, it's like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, like all of those are different. All of those are the same story told completely differently. Is that, I mean, maybe it's been a while since I took a course on the Bible. It's been a while since I've been in high school because I'm old as shit. But I'm pretty sure there's like dispute even amongst the disciples of Jesus himself that say differently, but I don't know. So there could definitely be some dispute there. He was holding his ground against other communists on Marxist subreddits, for reference, and I'd imagine those guys were nuts level intelligent. Well, once again, it's like, is Charlie Kirk intelligent? Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard to say that people are intelligent if they have like a ideology. I don't know. They could be very skilled and knowledgeable about what they're talking about, but I don't know if that would make them like inherently intelligent. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll look into socialism and I'll become a socialist. God forbid. But maybe the more I look into it and start reading into it a bit more, because the only reason I really know anything about it is my research into Ukraine and like looking into the Soviet Union and like what they were doing to Ukraine during the Soviet Union and like people in that area. And so I've kind of gotten like a good taste of like how that went wrong in the USSR at least, and like why the basic philosophy seems to like cannibalize itself. But maybe I could be wrong, but my disposition now is like, I don't think those people would actually be intelligent. They probably just know how to advocate for their belief system in a way that's like convincing, if that makes any sense.
Designed to make Rudy look arrogant for daring to question received wisdom, which happens to, completely agree with Charlie's views. What a coincidence. It's my view that Charlie is aware that this sentence, especially delivered with the shock that he imbued it with, will elicit a strong defensive ear from the Christians in the audience.
You know better than the Church Fathers?
The problem, though, is that the same argument can be used to defend every position of the Church Fathers, including their defense of slavery, their subordination of women, and their persecution of Jews. If Charlie won't accept, what? You think you know better than the Church Fathers as an argument for slavery? Which, of course, he wouldn't. He can't use it as an argument for his interpretation of biblical marriage. As the debate winds down, Charlie makes one final attempt to salvage his position.
But if the tradition lasts for 2,000 years, then we look back as to how did they get to that conclusion? How did they reach that verdict? And if that verdict is in alignment with what we see in Scripture, it means that their verdict was correct in Scripture.
So this is circular reasoning. Tradition validates Scripture, and Scripture validates tradition. with no independent verification. It's like saying, I know the Bible is true because my church says so, and I know that my church is right because the Bible says so. But here's what really gives the game away. Mesopotamia maintained its acceptance of same-sex relationships for 3,000 years,
for sure.
and it thrived. Now, if Charlie truly believed that tradition plus longevity equals truth, he'd have to concede the point.
I'm trying to learn Ukrainian, but it's hard. It is very difficult. And also, apparently, Duolingo Ukrainian isn't very good, but I'm trying to learn it because I'm super autistic about Ukraine. For some reason, I don't know why, it just tickles a part of my brain.
But he won't, because this was never about logic or consistency. The truth is, he started with the "I think it's yucky," that visceral response he accidentally admitted earlier, and worked backwards to find justifications.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
The biblical arguments, the appeals to tradition, the theological gymnastics, it's all post hoc rationalization for a conclusion he'd already reached based on personal disgust. He's not following reason to arrive at a position, he's deploying reason to defend feelings he refuses to examine. And this is why we're seeing him struggle so badly. It's a literal struggle to give his emotions a facade of reason.
You guys are easy.
Moving on, in his last response, Charlie reveals the game entirely.
The idea of biblical Christianity goes back to the early times of the church, when it was a scattered, persecuted church well before King Justinian and well before the Eastern Roman Empire, well before mass conversions. When it was a persecuted church, the church believed in one man, one woman, and because they got it from the scripture itself.
Again, this is the ultimate cherry-picking finale. Charlie appeals to the scattered, persecuted church when it supports his position on marriage, but he completely ignores what the same church believed about slavery, women's rights, wealth, anti-Semitism, and social justice. Augustine, one of the most influential church fathers, explicitly defended slavery as part of God's natural order. Aquinas later did the same. If Charlie wants to lean on early church tradition for marriage, he needs to explain why he rejects early church tradition on slavery and everything else that he doesn't like. But of course, he won't, because his argument was very obviously not derived from consistency or truth. It was about finding religious justification for his personal and political preferences. As Rudy astutely noted at the beginning, Charlie isn't defending universal moral truth. He's defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history.
So when you claim that modern conservative values represent some kind of universal, objective moral truth, like you said on your chair over there, aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
Alrighty, so now that we've walked through this entire exchange chronologically, the devastating pattern that emerges has become crystal clear. You see, Charlie employs virtually every rhetorical fallacy and manipulative debate tactic in the book. Red herrings and deflection. He consistently avoids answering direct questions by changing the subject, often by asking the opponent a question.
Aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage, not cohabitation, but marriage.
Moving the goalposts, he repeatedly changes the criteria for evidence when his challenges are met.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage, recognized by the state. 100%. How did that work out for them?
Gish gallops. He overwhelms his opponent with rapid-fire questions to avoid coherent discussion.
Do you care to address my main contention that Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew? And can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial, the moral, and the ritual law? And then finally, also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the new and the old covenant, or are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to new Christianity?
Special pleading. He applies different standards to his own position than to others.
We do not live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral.
Cherry picking. He selects only evidence that supports his conclusion while ignoring contradictory material.
Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew.
Appeals to tradition. He invokes a mythical unbroken chain that simply doesn't historically exist.
Church tradition has had an unbroken chain affirming matrimony, holy matrimony being one man, one woman.
Circular reasoning. His entire argument becomes a self-validating loop.
If the tradition lasts for 2,000 years, then we look back as to how did they get to that conclusion? How did they reach that verdict? And if that verdict is in alignment with what we see in Scripture, it means that their verdict was correct.
False equivalence. He treats consensual adult relationships as equivalent to murder. Burden of proof reversal. He demands that his opponent prove negatives and explain complex theological systems, rather than, defending his position.
Point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage. But what about specifically in Matthew or in the book of Romans? Also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the new and the old covenant. Can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial, the moral, and the ritual law? How did that work out for them?
Hasty generalizations. He makes sweeping claims about church history and ignores the complexity.
Church tradition has had an unbroken chain. The idea of biblical Christianity goes back to the early times of the church.
Ad hominem attacks. He questions Rudy's authority to challenge established interpretations.
In order for you to be correct, you mean the church fathers translated it wrong when they were within like 50 years of this? You know better than the church fathers?
But here's what makes this so instructive. Charlie genuinely believes that he's defending objective truth. And assuming that this is the case, he's not consciously trying to manipulate the audience. This is the intellectual tragedy of apologetics. It teaches people to defend predetermined conclusions by any means necessary, then mistake those defenses as discovering truth. The entire exchange exemplifies what I call a biblical buffet approach to moral authority. Want to condemn homosexuality? Here's Leviticus 18:22.
I'm not even getting into Leviticus.
Don't want to stone people for working on the Sabbath? Well, that's just ceremonial law.
We do not live under the ceremonial.
Want to defend traditional marriage? Here's Matthew 19:5.
Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew.
Don't want to submit to the government during COVID? Yeah, well,
Damn.
Romans 16 is
Steamrolled.
just vibes, yeah? Want to appeal to church tradition? The church fathers were basically eyewitnesses.
In order for you to be correct, you mean the church fathers translated it wrong when they were within like 50 years of this?
Don't want to follow church tradition on slavery? Well, tradition evolves, God's really smart. We call it progressive revelation.
Christ brought it to a different level, a different covenant, and a different moral teaching.
And this whole discussion reveals a deeper philosophical problem. If moral truths were genuinely universal and objective, we wouldn't need ancient texts in disputed translations to discover them. Real universal truths, or at least experiences, like the wrongness of unnecessary suffering, are recognizable across all cultures precisely because they're grounded in shared human experience. The fact that Charlie's universal truths align perfectly with 21st century American conservative politics should tell us everything we need to know. It is a massive red flag. In stark contrast to Charlie, Rudy demonstrates what genuine intellectual engagement looks like. Despite facing a professional pundit with years of debate experience who
this guy like somehow like I said, the fact that he was able to actually beat him in general, let alone about a subject like this, which is deeply philosophical in nature, is crazy.
Basically humiliating his opponents. It's why, by the way, he goes to so many colleges. It's just he underestimated what he's going to get in Cambridge.
You guys are easy. Okay, I still think it's wrong.
This student maintains composure, cites evidence from his field, responds directly to questions, and even acknowledges limitations in his own examples. His primary concern is truth, not victory, even though maybe he probably enjoyed a bit of it. Now, the final thing I want to say is that beneath the entertainment of the debate, because it was entertaining, I think it's worth really appreciating what's at stake. This isn't just an academic exercise. It's about real people's lives and dignity. When Charlie deploys these rhetorical tricks to defend discrimination, he's contributing to a world where LGBTQ+ people face violence, rejection, and despair. And unfortunately, he's so committed to his prejudices that he's willing to torture logic itself to justify them. In the end, Charlie's intellectual house is built entirely on sand, the shifting dunes of cultural prejudice. And when genuine inquiry blew against that house, it collapsed instantly. All that remained is the naked admission that we heard at the beginning.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
His sophisticated theological arguments
That's
were
awesome,
never about discovering truth. They were about justifying what he already decided that he believed. He said the quiet part out loud. And perhaps that's the most important lesson here. In a world full of Charlie Kirks claiming divine authority for their political positions, the ability to distinguish between genuine moral reasoning and prejudice in fancy dress isn't just an intellectual skill, it's essential for human dignity. Guys, I really appreciate you. If you want more content just like this, then please consider supporting me and the team on Patreon.
I like this video. This video is really good. I've never seen this guy before. Very interesting. I'm gonna send this link. I want you guys to go show this guy some love. Give him a sub. Give him a like. I'm gonna subscribe to him. Look at that. That's me hitting the subscribe button. I like this guy. Yeah, definitely check him out. Give him some love. Give him a like and all that stuff. Very good stuff.